Hello everybody, it's the Gruppeteer, and I'm back again with another episode of Cartoons vs. Cancer, the show where we interview your favorite cartoon creators to help raise money for my good friend Madeline Carlson's post-cancer treatment. And today's guest is, safe to say, a very, very special guest. Mr. Steve Hickner is with us today. You might know him from his book, Animating Your Career, or his two movies that he's been a part of directing or a co-director, The Prince of Egypt for DreamWorks, and of course, DreamWorks' The Bee Movie. And while we have a whole bunch of Bee Movie questions we'd love to ask Steve, we'd first like to say, hi Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me part of your show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for wanting to come on. There was I didn't tell you this, but you were one of the first people that when I first started the show about a year ago, everybody was telling me to get Steve Hickner on the show because he made the Bee Movie. And now we finally have it. It's a monumental occasion, to say the least. Everybody from all around the world is coming together to watch this live right now. And of course, as it is live, you can ask your questions to Steve right in the comments. They'll probably be answered. It'll be pretty cool. And since he can't be in the studio with us today, we have trapped his spirit, mind, and body inside this little thing of pure honey, so it'll never go bad. So, of course, you'll be answering the questions, but he'll be right in here. And I guess the first question I want to know, before we get into any Bee Movie stuff, is that you did start with The Prince of Egypt. You co-directed it. And it was sort of this different period for DreamWorks, right? Where they weren't doing computer animation as much as they are now?
That's right. It was the first 2D or traditional or hand-drawn movie from DreamWorks. And because of that, it was very exciting to get to be part of the very first DreamWorks movie. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people ask me, why did they pick that story? Because certainly at that time, you know, Fox was doing Anastasia, and Disney had been doing things like Beauty and the Beast, and nobody was doing anything remotely as serious and dramatic as, say, the story of the Prince of Egypt. But the way that came about was I had been working with Steven Spielberg in London for a number of years, 5 years, and we had made some movies there, and none of them were as successful as what Disney was doing. Mm-hmm. So when DreamWorks came together with Jeffrey Katzenberg and Steven Spielberg, Steven asked Jeffrey, what did he think were the elements that made a great animated movie? Mm-hmm. And Jeffrey said, well, it's got a timeless character, a huge theme, very strong dramatic elements. And as he was describing him, Steven said, oh, you mean like the Ten Commandments?
Yeah.
And Jeffrey said, yeah, exactly like the Ten Commandments. And that's how it began.
And I have to know, everybody in Hollywood, it seems like the in-joke that Steven Spielberg is like the nicest human to ever live. Can you confirm or deny such a rumor?
Well, for me, it was a wonderful almost 6 years that I worked with Steven. I loved it.
Yeah.
He is the most inspirational person I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And for me, he was, I would confirm all of those stories.
Oh, yeah. I've not to say that I'm out for the guy, but I've actually checked to see if anybody like that I've had on my show has anything bad to say about him. He seems like all around the nicest person to ever exist.
Well, I can tell you a story that is absolutely true because I witnessed it. One day, we had a couple of at-risk students from lower income working in the studio in London. They were young kids. They were like 14 years old. And Steven was in the studio. He had just finished Jurassic Park, so this must have been 93. And as we were walking through the studio, there were a couple of kids who had pictures of dinosaurs that they had drawn on the wall, those two guys. Yeah. And as Steven went by, he stopped. And he looked at him and he said, who drew these pictures? And the kids very sheepishly said, well, you know, I did. Mm-hmm. And he said, these are fantastic. I wish I could draw like this. He said, I always wanted to be an animator. He said, but I can't draw. And he said, these are really good. And then he looked over and saw that the kid had a camera there, mm-hmm. which the kid had clearly brought in the hopes that he would, you know, get the picture with Steven. And Steven said, do you mind if we get a picture together?
Really?
And the little boy's face lit up, and Stephen pulled him and he took off his hat and put it on the kid's head, and took all these pictures with the kid, and then we went on. But he was that way. He loves kids. And so he saw these guys. He didn't know that story, that these were at-risk kids or from lower incomes. He just saw that they were young kids, and he wanted to give them the affirmation to keep going.
Wow.
And that's the kind of person he was. He's very, very much someone who is an advocate for others.
Yeah. Wow. Yep. I think those rumors are true. Then he seems like a godlike figure, from what I've heard. But I guess a lot of people, when they're adapting, novels into movies, there's always these fans of the original book that are always like, you messed up this scene. Harry didn't say that to Hagrid. Is there any sort of added pressure into adapting like religious text into a movie compared to, when people adapt like some young adult novel?
Absolutely, there was. We felt the sense of responsibility because, as we used to say, we're working on that movie. So this story isn't ours. It belongs to many religions all over the world, and we had many religious leaders come in.
Yeah.
And I suppose the only thing that we added of our own was we decided to concentrate and tell the story through the story of the two brothers.
Yeah.
And how this remarkable event changes the dynamic between them. But we tried to stay true. I mean, certainly there are many people who take issue with some of the choices we've made, as in any adaptation of a Bible story.
And so, because, like you said, you can't just have the author of the book come in and tell you, this is how it would have looked. Would you mind telling me a little bit about what it was like to get those religious leaders in to tell you about how it should look?
Well, it was very interesting because we had them from all different kinds of religions. I mean, the Moses story is part of the Quran. It's part of the Torah. It's part of the Old Testament. It's part of the Christian religion. So everybody had their version of what they think the Ten Commandments story is and what's important to them. And so we tried to take into consideration all of their issues. But, at the end of the day, we had to make our version, and we had to get it down to like 84 minutes, so it can't have everything in it.
And speaking of making the movie, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it true that the Moses's parting of the Red Sea part took 2 years to animate, was it?
Well, I don't know if it took 2 years, but it took the entire length of the production to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Because it all started with this Paul Hussein visual development painting he did way at the very beginning of the process, and we all said, that's it. That's what it should look like, that image of him putting it down. And at that time, the computers, which were these silicon graphic machines, all of the computer power at DreamWorks was like 500 megabytes.
Yeah.
Which is nothing. The thought of a terabyte of data would have been, or memory would have been fantastic, but we had nothing like that. And so Brenda, Simon, and I used to joke that we were writing checks that we can't cash, with the hopes that someday the technology would come up to the point where we could do that image. And that's what happened. It took, I would say, within the last 6 or 8 months of the production for the technology to finally be able to achieve that painting that Paul had done, almost 3 years earlier. So in that way, I would say you're right, but not exactly.
Yeah, there's some complications with the numbers, but as you said, it was the first primarily 2D animated. There's some 3D sequences, but the most primarily 2D one. And then obviously the B movie being a 3D animated feature. Was it strange to shift from 2D to 3D, and what was it like?
Well, actually, I made the shift to 3D after Prince of Egypt, because while making Prince of Egypt, a little movie called Toy Story came out. And when I went and saw that movie, I said, we're dead. This is the future. This is unbelievable. I mean, to me, and I still feel this way, Toy Story, the Toy Story 1 was like Snow White was in its day in 1937 or 38. It was like that. and I said, wow, this is the future. I better get out of 2D or I'm not going to be in this business any longer. So at the end of Prince of Egypt, I worked on a direct-to-video for Joseph, but I was trying to get out of 2D into 3D because I didn't want to be seen as a 2D artist. I want to be seen as a person who works in film in general. So after that, I worked on an Aardman film for 2 years, which sadly never got made.
Oh, yeah.
But in those 2 years working at the Aardman film, I had moved out of 2D into 3D. And when I came back, I got onto Shark Tale, which was all 3D.
Oh, yeah. And would you say that in this pretty much movie animation scene that's pretty much, dominated by 3D movies, I think Song of the Sea is the only one off the top of my head that's been 2D in the last few years. Would you say that, there's any place for 2D in the future, or would you say that 3D is sort of going to be here forever?
I love 2D personally. I don't know that it's going to come back in the American market in a big way, a big commercial way. Certainly not. I think if you made it for like 20 million or 30 million, perhaps you could make one if you made a Flash animated feature like that. I just saw the Long Way North, which is a terrific 2D movie. And I haven't seen the Red Turtle yet, which is the a Studio Ghibli 2D movie, and that's supposed to be fantastic as well. So there are 2D movies out there being made, but they're not being made in the United States. I think the type of Hollywood movies they make now are all CG, although I personally love 2D.
Yeah, I too have the love for 2D. And actually, I think there might be Ghibli's, Miyazaki's coming out of retirement, I think. I think he announced it again that he's coming out of retirement. He retires here and there. He's sort of like the Eagles saying it's their farewell tour. It's here and there.
Yeah.
In the comments, Jar Jar Mattis would like to know. All right, here they come. Here come the B movie questions.
Okay.
Jar Jar Mattis would like to know: do you like bees personally?
I actually am a huge proponent of animals in general. I love animals, and yeah, I do like bees. I hate this. When I was a kid, I got stung by many, many bees, and they would always put mud on it to get the stingers out.
Really?
Yeah.
Did it work?
I guess that salve made it feel better, just because of the acid in the stinger. Anyway, when I was about 5 years old, I got the idea that mud takes stingers out of things. So I thought that if I put some bees in the mud, that would get the stingers out, and then I could play with them. So what I did was I took some mud, I put some bees in the mud, and I put them on my arm. So I had all these bees crawling on my arm. Right. And while they were covered with mud, yes, they couldn't sting me. But slowly, the mud works its way off, at which point I was stung numerous times with this idea, because I thought I was going to make, like there's a flea circus. I thought I was going to make a bee circus, and I could train bees to do things. So I got stung many times trying to do that dumb bee circus idea.
That's like like that guy who puts the queen bee on his chin and gets the beard around his face.
Yeah, mine was short-lived though. After I'd been stung a few times, once the mud came off the bee, I stopped that idea. That's something.
That reminds me of the Wicker Man. You're the Wicker Man. All right, so now that we're on this subject, and it'll probably dominate the rest of this interview, given that it's a live interview. Here come the B-movie questions. So I'd just like to preface this off by saying, of course, for those people in the audience who don't know what the B-movie is, first of all, I mean, I'd say you should watch it. Would you recommend watching it?
Yeah, can I say one thing? You asked the question about Steven, is he a really nice guy? I gotta say, Jerry Seinfeld is the same thing. For the 3 or 3.5 years that I got to work on B-Movie with Jerry Seinfeld was really one of the most pleasurable, fantastic periods I've ever had in my life. He is so funny, and I felt for 3 to 3.5 years, all I did was laugh all day at work. I absolutely loved working with him. And for any people who are Seinfeld fans, I can tell you that he is as wonderful as he is in the show. He's so much fun.
That was actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we were sort of going to get into that a little bit later, but now that it's here, do you have any good Jerry Seinfeld stories?
Well, I'll tell you a story, because I asked Jerry, I said, what's your favorite story of a fan story? And he said he bought when he was a teenager, he used to have a Volkswagen. As you know, he loves cars.
Yeah.
He had a Volkswagen, and he bought one like he had when he was a teenager a few years ago. And his idea was to buy this Volkswagen and drive it across country. And he drove it with his friend, Barry Mardar, who's a comedian and a writer. Mm-hmm. And as they were driving across, and I forget where it is, but some very small town with like less than 500 people, they stop to get something to eat. And they're walking down the street, and this old man is coming towards them the other way.
Yeah.
And as the old man passed, he goes, "Hey, Jerry," and they just kept walking. And Jerry and Barry thought it was so funny. It's like, this is the middle of nowhere. This guy acts like he sees Jerry Seinfeld every single day.
Yeah.
But anyway, that trek, by the way, was where he came up with the idea of comedians in cars getting coffee.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes, it was him and his friend driving across country in a car, and he said this would be a fun idea for a show. And that's how it became. Which, strangely enough, I hear that he doesn't drink coffee. Is that right? Oh no, he drinks coffee. We used to have contests during the making of B Movie. You would say, today we're going to find out the best cupcake in Los Angeles. Yeah. So they would go out and get all the different kinds of cupcakes from all the different places, because he said, is Sprinkles really the best one? Because at the time, Sprinkles Cupcakes was really hot. Is that the best one? So we got all the cupcakes, and we all tasted them to see which one was the best. And another day was the best frozen yogurt. Was Pinkberry's the best frozen yogurt? Another day would be the French toast. But he likes that kind of thing. All right, then I gotta know, because I go to LA, here and there to do some stuff with CalArts. I gotta know. You gotta be like my TripAdvisor. What is the best cupcake place in LA? Well, it was split. Mm-hmm. I think the edge did indeed go to Sprinkles. Oh. But when we did Donut Day, we're picking the best donuts. There's a place in Farmers Market that had really good donuts, and there's I forget the name, is that Bob's or something? Then there's one in Westwood that had really good donuts. Mm-hmm. And of course we tried Krispy Kreme, but some of the boutique ones were the ones that won on Donut Day. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Hickner's book, The Food Guide to LA, will be coming out to Phantom Magazine very, very soon. We hope to see him with Chef Ramsay himself judging donut factories one day. But in the meantime, there's so many B-movie questions. Jar Jar Mattis and Abraham Quadrado, which is probably not how you say his name, would like to know why, if it was you that made the decision, bees were chosen over any other animal. Well, there's a story of how B-Movie came about. Yeah, I'd love to know that. Jerry was having dinner with, because Steven Spielberg has a house in the Hamptons, and so does Jerry. They were having dinner together, and Jerry was joking, and he said, what about a movie about bees called Bee Movie? And Steven laughed and said, that's a great idea. And the next thing you know, he was making that movie. So he got together some of his friends from the Seinfeld show, writers like Andy Robbins and Spike Ferencin and Barry Mardar, and trying to think who, two of the Simpson guys, I forget their names. But, and they worked out a first draft of the script that changed quite a bit during the making of the movie, but the basic premise always stayed the same, which was kind of an homage to The Graduate. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I get that with the pool scene especially, yeah. I see that. Yeah. So then how did you yourself get on the project? I mean, Graduate's Jerry's favorite movie. Well, they had a bunch of us, and we wrote notes about B-movie, and then we eventually the script, and then a couple of us, Simon Smith, who had been a layout artist and directed the Shrek 4D ride at Universal, and me, we met with Jerry, and I guess we did well enough not to lose the job. Yeah. That's how we ended up. But I felt like that was a winning lotto ticket to get to work with him.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. So I've sort of mentioned towards it before, but yes, of course, everybody probably knows the B-movie through its, I'd say fame, actually. It's fame over the internet, especially in the last few years. The B-movie has really just spiked in popularity, and it's just become one of those like memes that everybody just seems to be in love with.
Yeah, T-shirt with the script.
Yeah. Do you have like a T-shirt with the script on it?
No, I have the original script.
Oh yeah. I think that's just a little bit better. But you obviously know these memes, right? All these, internet.
I know some of them.
Do you how did you learn about it? Like, when did you first find out people were doing this?
I think I saw a thing with Jerry on Reddit where he was talking about all the memes that were out there on Twitter, and so I looked them up and go, wow, there really are a lot of these things, and some of them are very funny.
Oh yeah. Do you have a specific favorite that you can remember?
No, I can't, but there's one with a guy like vomiting bees or something at this that like GIF that people have. Mm-hmm. But I can't think of any specific ones. But I was surprised that there was the subculture of people who love B-movie.
Well, we actually have a few specific ones. There's been this increase lately of YouTube videos in which people like to take the movie and either distort it or do different things with it. And if you wouldn't mind, we'd actually like to let you listen to a few here live on air. Okay. Does that sound appealing? I
had no idea that people were doing this.
There's quite a few actually. The first one is by a man whose name is Avoid at All Costs. And the video is called The B-Movie Trailer, but every time they say the word B, it does the whole trailer really fast. It's a pretty. We're just gonna show a little clip of the video, but I think you'll understand the basic premise.
Which trailer? One of the live action ones or one of the animated ones?
This is the animated one.
Okay, so the others are the teaser trailer.
Yeah, teaser. This is not the one with Jerry in it. This is the animated one itself. Yeah. And we'll just play the audio. We're having a little bit of trouble. All right, yeah, we're fine. Oh wait, technical difficulties, just a second. We're professionals. But it's this subculture, and I honestly don't know where it can. I mean, my job is YouTube, and I don't understand how, anything really about all the trends that happen, but these have really gotten immensely popular over the last few years. So, like I said, this is the B-movie trailer, but every time they say B, it does the whole trailer really fast. I'll just play a little clip. As you can see, it'll play the entire trailer. Every time it says the word B. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. You have a plan? Yes, plan B. And that continues for about 2 minutes. Of course, there's the ever so classic entire B-movie script, which is read by a man named Bren Daniel. It is a hour-long reading that he does in his deep monotone voice, which has been used in many compilations.
This is Blue Leader. We have roses. Visual. Bring it around 30 degrees and hold. Roses. 30 degrees. Roger. Bringing it around. Stand to the side, kid. It's got a bit of a kick. That is one nectar collector. Ever seen pollination up close? No, sir. I pick up some pollination. That's one that gets used a lot, actually. Have you heard that one before?
No, he's pretty good doing Jerry.
Yeah, his Jerry voice. This is Wonker Flap's B-movie, but it keeps getting faster. This is about 3 minutes in. As you can tell, we take our content very seriously here at Gruppetstudios.
Yes, I see that.
And the last one is Allie Grace's rapping of the B-movie script.
Wow.
Are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway because bees don't care what humans think is.
Is that the title that comes over the beginning of the movie? The bees.
Well, I think it's done in parts, and I think it's the entire script is wrapped. That was just the beginning. So as you can see, obviously, people really like your movie. People have seemed to just like take it and just make things with it, and it's really just fascinating to watch what people are doing. I mean, would you even have believed that something could happen like this?
No, the only thing I might have said is that Jerry has a very strong fan base, and what's interesting, I remember talking to Jerry about this, his fans, and he said because he was in the living room every week, he has a very different relationship with his fans and his fans have with him than a movie star like Brad Pitt. It's much more he's part of the family. So it's a much friendlier type of thing and less of this he's on Mount Rushmore kind of thing. So it's kind of fun to watch them interact with him because to them it's like this was a guy in my living room every week. And
do you personally have a relation with him too? Like, do you talk to him regularly here and there?
No, not so much anymore. Sometimes emails.
Oh yeah.
But he's got a gazillion things going on.
Oh yeah. And I'd love to know actually, because last interview we had Everett Peck, who created a show called Duckman, and the titular character was voiced by Jason Alexander, and he was talking about how Jason's completely different when he's doing Seinfeld, and like you said, Jerry is mostly the same. But do you personally have an episode of Seinfeld that you like the most?
Well, I think Jerry's is the one with one of his favorite things is the blowhole one, where the golf ball goes in the blowhole of the whale.
Yeah.
That one. It's hard to pick one episode. What I like, I would say, I liked it when the show got wackier.
Yeah.
I think after Larry David left, it began to become less grounded in reality, and they did the Bizarro World and the stuff like that, and the Merv Griffin sat in Kramer's living room, that kind of thing. Yeah. Those are the kind of ones that are my favorite, the ones that are kooky.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Yeah. In the comments, there are so many. In the comments, Abraham Kwanda would like to know, if possible, would you be interested in making a second B movie?
Well, you could only do it with Jerry. And I don't know that he would ever do it. He said before we ever began, I asked him if he said, "Do you think you'll ever do another movie?" And he said, "I did one TV show, and I'm going to do one movie." And so my guess is it will never happen. You can't do it without Jerry. He is the DNA of the whole project. He's the lead character. And I think Jerry sees himself, even with monstrous show, as and he's a big tour across the U.S. doing his stand-up, and that's what, in his heart, who he truly is.
All right. And apologies, there was just a little bit of static there for a second, but we still got what you were saying. Also in the comments, Abraham Kwanda would still like to know, have you ever thought, as you said, you love animals, have you ever thought of doing a different CG movie with a different kind of animal that interests you?
Yeah, I mean, I when I first heard the idea of Zootopia, I thought, Zootopia, I feel like we've seen this kind of a thing a million times, characters in clothes in an animal world. Well, how is it going to be any different? Yeah. And when I saw Zootopia, it absolutely blew me away. It was so good. I think it's a terrific, ingenious movie. I absolutely love it. So to be able to do something anywhere near as good as Zootopia would be thrilling. I just loved every aspect of that movie. I love the animation in it.
Yeah, and
So good.
I'd think with doing a movie about any animal, you'd have to probably study them. Did you? I'm guessing you studied bees, right?
Yeah. We went to apiaries and ate a lot of honey. And I knew about bees anyway because I'm interested in animals. If I show you my phone, I have a picture of this terrific moth that I took a photo of last week when I was in Orlando in Florida. I just love animals.
And would you say that there was something that you learned about bees that surprised you when you were studying them?
I don't think there was anything new that I learned. I think during the time we were making the movie, we did find out about this horrible colony collapse disease which started. It was just beginning as we were making the movie, and now, of course, it looks like it's either from pesticides or from some mite that's attacking the bees.
Yeah, actually, I'd be interested. I'm good at these. I'd be interested to know a little more, if you would mind talking about that subject. Obviously, the bee epidemic, if you will, has really been a problem in the last few years, especially in South America here and there. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about your insight to it?
Well, I only know the little bit that I've been reading because I'm interested in animals in general. I mean, it saddens me tremendously to watch animals go extinct in my lifetime. Because I love them, I want the next generation to have the same opportunity I have. I've gone to Africa and gone on safaris, and we went on. My wife and I went on safaris to India, and went snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef. And now, when you see photos of how much of the Great Barrier Reef has been bleached out, and it's gone. And we had the same thing. We went to the Maldives. And the Maldives is like, I think 80% of marine life is represented in those oceans right off the Maldives. And since the El Nino and the climate change, it's bleached out them. So that kind of stuff alarms me. So what we did learn about, so when I read about bees, I want to find out why. Why are they dying? Why is this happening? Because they just get disoriented and they leave and they never come back. And I guess that one of the theories is the pesticides we've been using. And another one is potentially a mite or something attacking the bees.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure which one is the most recent.
I would hope we find, because you need bees. You need them to make flowers. You need them to pollinate flowers. They're such an important part of our ecosystem. It really is a shame.
Yeah, that's what we try to get to with, Bee Movie. Of all the jokes, at one point it actually becomes important. Like, you need these bees to pollinate.
Yeah.
They're not the only ones. Bats pollinate, butterflies pollinate, birds pollinate, but bees do the primary lifting.
Yeah, like the bee's job in life literally is to pollinate,
Yeah.
But I digress, I guess, back to the lighter stuff. Jar Jar Mattis, oh boy, would like to know if it was hard to animate bees. I don't know why.
It's any more difficult than any other animal. What it was hard to was to come up with the design for Barry. We tried a million different things. Some of them were like, one thing Jerry did not want, he didn't want Barry to look like him.
Yeah.
Because some of the early ones even had like caricatures of Jerry Seinfeld, and he said, I don't want that. I just want the bee to exist on its own, and I happen to do the voice to it. But I don't think it's any more difficult. What was the challenge of Bee Movie was the fact that he was so small as a character. He's only a quarter of an inch tall in that world. To get him in shots with Vanessa, sometimes he would be right next to the camp to get a two shot where he's talking to Vanessa. He would literally be half an inch from the camera lens, and she would be across the room.
Yeah.
To make it look like they were right next to each other. Now, if we had been doing this movie in stereoscopic 3D, it never would have worked, because you would have been able to see, wait a minute, they're nowhere near each other. But because we were doing it in flat,
Yeah.
The 3D thing, the stereoscopic movies hadn't come along yet. It was right after we finished. They did. We had been in real trouble if we'd had to do that.
That's interesting to think of. But I mean, of course, there's your movie career, your life on the screen. But outside of the screen, you actually wrote a book. It's called Animating Your Career, right? That's
right. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the book and giving career advice to people at the CTN Animation Expo, and that's always fun. I've gone to many. I was in Denmark, in October, and in the summer I went to Taiwan. I love going to different places, but especially talking to young people who want to get in. Yeah. And I think going to different countries to talk to people about animation and, talking to them there, are there different, things you pick up maybe in Denmark that you wouldn't in America in terms of animation? It's surprising there's more similarities than differences. Sometimes, in Denmark, the most recent ones, the films that they were making that I was helping them on, mentoring them, as it were, teaching storyboarding, they were very dramatic. Yeah. Very deep and dramatic and have terrific thematic elements. And I go, boy, is this what it's like? Yeah, you go to Europe, nobody's making SpongeBob, they're making this. Yeah. And they said, no, last year we had a whole bunch of silly comedies. It just so happens this year it's this. So I think there's more similarities than dissimilarities. That makes me wonder if a certain event that happened in Europe lately led to a more darker outlook of the world. But we're not even going to get into that here. But I do like the idea of darker narratives and stuff. Would you say that, primarily, this isn't, I hate to put a label on all animation, especially since it's pretty much my job to talk to these people. But most of it doesn't stray too far into the dramatic. But what I really love about Prince of Egypt, going back to that, is that it is dramatic and it is dark. Was there ever at the time, there weren't too many movies that were as dark and dramatic as, the plague scene in the Prince of Egypt is pretty insane. Was there ever a point where you were thinking maybe we shouldn't go this dark, or were you just wanted your vision? No, in hindsight, I don't know if the American audiences really want to see a lot of dramatic animated films. We did okay, but we certainly were on the lower end of what Disney does. And I think animation-wise, and it's a beautiful looking movie, and we're all proud of it. But at its core, it's a drama. And I remember after Prince of Egypt, Brenda Chapman was in London because her husband, Kevin Lima, was shooting 102 Dalmatians. And Kevin loves puppets and things. Mm-hmm. And while they were there, Kevin said, look, there's a puppet show of Shakespeare. Let's go see it. So Brenda and he went to this puppet show of Shakespeare. And when Brenda was watching it, she realized, this is less fun than I thought it would be. She goes, I think the problem is, when I go see puppets, I don't want to see Shakespeare. I want it to be fun. I want to see the Muppets. Yeah. And then she said, you know what? She said, that's what we did with Prince of Egypt. We made Shakespeare with puppets. And in some ways, what she means is people love animation to be fun and light. And we did a dramatic thing. And certainly there's an audience for that. But it's not as big an audience is for Frozen or Zootopia or Finding Dory or Secret Life of Pets or Sing or Trolls. At the end of the day, that's what people really, and not just in terms of animation, in terms of live action. People, Doctor Strange is going to make more money than Birth of a Nation and even Sully, which is a real crowd pleaser, is still only going to make a fraction of something like Fantastical Beasts and Where to Find Them. Which is, I saw it last night. It's really good. I saw it yesterday too, and I totally agree with you. It is really good. It's great. Oh, I'd love to talk about it, but it's pretty early in its theatrical career, so I guess we can't say too much. But it's really good, and Steve Hickner recommends it, so go see it. If you like, I like Harry Potter. I mean, last week I was at Universal Studios in Florida, and I went to Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade there. I love Harry Potter, and I thought the new movie was great fun.
It's really enjoyable. So just back to Prince of Egypt for just a second. Is there a shot in the movie that particularly strikes a chord with you? Because there's a lot of really powerful imagery, like you said, with, it's a little more of a dramatic movie, but there's a lot of powerful imagery. Is there any certain, shot that really resonates with you, or a scene?
I love that the last shot of the prologue, which is that where it goes boom at the end of the song, Deliver Us, where we pull back and see all of Egypt and see the great big set he had there. And I love that shot. It was funny because it was the very, very first shot we put into production. And it was the very, very last shot that was finished.
Yeah.
It took like 3 years to do that shot.
That personally, I don't know if anybody cares, but there's that scene where the king stands up and he's talking to his sons, and his profile is like the statue, and then you replicate it with the Ramses one later. Oh, that was great. I love that one.
Because we wanted to say this kid's got to live in his shadow.
Yeah. There's a lot of really powerful, like.
I know, there's so many. There's terrific visuals that our production designer Derek Gogol and Kathy Altieri and Richie Chavez did with their team. I mean, they're terrific.
Do you remember the last time? Because it's about 20 years old now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, about 1998, so it's 18 years old.
Do you remember the last time you watched it?
The last time I watched it, I probably would be right before it came out. I did see part of it recently because I was in Brazil about a year and a half ago, and they showed Prince of Egypt, and I had to watch some things to pull clips of it, but I didn't watch the whole movie. Before I got into movies, I would read these things about people who say, "Oh, I never watch my films," and I thought, "Oh, I bet that isn't true." And then I got into movies, and I am absolutely that way because you work with it every single day. You see it a million times for 3.5 years, and when you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want to move on to something new now. Like I haven't seen B movies since it came out. I haven't seen Prince of Egypt either.
Huh. Really interesting. Yeah. I think you're the first person. No, you're the first person who said that, because I think both the other people who have made movies on my show have seen them since it came out. So that's interesting to hear. And their movies were a lot more recent. Huh.
Well, for me, I always feel like I'm running behind in how many movies are out there. I love movies.
Yeah.
And if I have a chance to see somebody else's movie or my own, I'd rather watch somebody else's movie. I just love going to movies. I just, on the plane, I was watching some episodes of Into the Night, that HBO thing. Terrific.
Really? Yeah.
Now I'm hooked. I got to watch the rest of that series. I only saw the first 2 episodes. It was terrific.
Well, then I guess on the coattails of that, in the comments, Brooke and Christina would like to know, what is your favorite movie, like, ever?
Well, my favorite movie is a 3-way tie for different reasons.
All right.
Number 1 would be Citizen Kane. I think it's the best movie I've ever seen. It's a masterpiece. I can watch it a million times. I never get tired of it. The dialogue is so much fun. It's like if you only were going to watch one film in your life, to me, to learn how to make movies, that would be it.
Yeah.
So that's that. Tied with that would be The Godfather, which is so much fun. I love that movie and every aspect of it. But the movie that I would love to have made, of all the movies ever made, would be Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is my Star Wars. The way people feel about Star Wars, that's the way I feel about Mary Poppins. I saw it as a kid at just the right time. It hit me, and I loved it. And when I saw Saving Mr. Banks a few years ago, it was like watching Mary Poppins the first time again.
I also really, really like Save Mr. Banks. Tom Hanks does a great job as Walt Disney in that one.
Yeah, I loved it.
They might have tampered with the ending, but No, nobody really minds that much. But like you said, you saw you saw Mary Poppins when you were a kid. I'm assuming you probably didn't see The Godfather as too young of a kid. Do you remember?
No, I saw that on TV later because in the old days it would go on. You'd go out in the movies, and then there was a 5-year window before it could go on television. So I think it was on television in 1978. The movie came out in 73.
Yeah.
So I probably saw it. No, did it come out in 72? I think it came out in 72, so I saw it in 77, I think.
Yeah, that was. And do you like? Would you say that there are certain aspects that you like to take from that and put in your movies? Any of those three?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that movie is like a Greek play. It is so well done. It's got the idiot son and Fredo. It's like got all these tremendous classic Greek theater elements, which is why it's such a great movie. So, in terms of structure, in terms of design, it's brilliant. There are countless things that I would take from that movie if I had something that was applicable.
Yeah. Would you say that you have a favorite scene from the movie?
Oh, The Godfather?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Let's see. It would be with Brando, and it might be like the scene where he's with his kid and he dies, because I feel like I'm watching Brando improvise in that. I think he just made that up.
Yeah.
You know, putting the orange in his mouth and pretending he's a monster. I think that probably was, you're going to play with the kid and have a heart attack. And the rest of it is Brando improvising there. And it's so sweet. And I love when he dies, the kid thinks he's still playing. Yeah, so that would be one of my favorite scenes. There's so many.
And oh, by the way, spoiler alert for The Godfather. If you haven't seen The Godfather by now, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. And before we sign off, there is just one more comment that we'd like to in the comments. Super DD Super would like to know, will there ever be a B-movie short or a TV show or a continuation that isn't, on the big screen?
That's a really good question. I don't know. If it did, it would have to come from Jerry.
Yeah.
As I said, he's the DNA of the whole project. So if he were interested, maybe it would happen. I mean, B-movie did well when it came out, but it wasn't a knock it out of the park movie.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, Finding Nemo, which is going to build this, require a sequel and more. I think actually think if you made a sequel to B-movie, it might do better than the original because of as you say, people have been watching it for years and have liked that character.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with lately, I can think of Mr. Peabody and Sherman or the How to Train Your Dragon have sort of gotten continued universes from DreamWorks in, TV. So
yeah.
maybe there's hope, maybe there's not. But I mean, if that did happen, would you be someone who'd, want to see the continuation?
Yeah, I love that character. I think he's incredibly funny. I'd want Vanessa to be part of it too.
Yeah.
And boy, Patrick Warburton, that guy is so funny.
Yeah.
And so much fun to work with. What a great cast.
Oh, yeah. What a great
Chris Rock do a little role like that. What a spoil of riches we have. John Goodman, oh my God, it was like the wish list of like the best people you could imagine.
Was it like every first pick you had got onto the film?
Sometimes we try an actor and it wouldn't quite work, and it was because our character wasn't right, and go, nah, that's not it. Mm-hmm. We do a test, and see it, and then go, no, that's not quite it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So sometimes it wasn't, and it wasn't the fault of the actor, because sometimes they never even knew we were looking at them. We were just doing an animation test to see if it would work. But yeah, I think most of anybody we wanted said yes to work with Jerry. I don't think anybody. It's not like when we did Prince of Egypt. Interestingly, at one point we were looking at Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
And Daniel Day-Lewis said, "This isn't my process." He said, I can't do some lines and come back 6 months later and do some more. And if you see his movies, you can totally understand. It's just, I mean, we were just looking at him to see if he would be interested at that point. And he said, I can't do animation. It's not the way I work.
Yeah. I can understand that because, as the creators of the people on the team, you're there 24/7, but the voice actors come in every here and then.
Yeah, and you know how Daniel Day-Lewis works.
Mm.
He completely inhabits that character for the entire time he's making it.
Yeah.
And he starts before the movie ever begins, living that character and inhabiting it. So he can't plug in for 2 hours one day and come back 6 months later and plug in again. It's just never going to happen.
And I said that would be the last one in the comments, but this actually is one that I'd be interested to know. This will be the last one. Matthew T in the comments would like to know if there are any scenes from the B movie that, or your movies in general, that didn't make the final cut.
Oh yeah, I can't even remember anymore. Is there a scene ever where Barry does Shakespeare in the Park? Is that there anymore?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Originally we had an ending where Barry does Shakespeare in the Park. There was a whole thing with that. Right. There was a whole thing with a David Attenborough type character with Eric Idle, which we lost a whole part of because our first cut of the movie was from storyboard was like 2 hours long. We had to cut 30 minutes out of it.
Yeah.
So we lost all kinds of stuff, crazy stuff. But we had to just to streamline the movie. So yeah, there was all kinds of things. Less so in Prince of Egypt. Because we were working from a text that wasn't going to move. It was only a matter of how much of that story we can tell and what we can't.
And with any of those scenes, specifically the Shakespeare one, I guess, was there any like voice acting or animation done for it, or was it just killed before anything?
Oh yeah, we had all the, Jerry did all the storyboard dialogue, and we had a stand-in. A scratch person playing the other Shakespearean actors. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we never went to animation. We didn't have a lot of animation that we cut out. A lot of storyboard stuff got cut out because we're working like he does his stand-up shows.
Yeah,
we put stuff out there and see what lands and what doesn't, and we would cut it. That's why he loved animation. It was very much like he worked with stand-up. He put it out there. We'd show it to audiences, find out where the jokes were landing and where they weren't. We'd cut it out and work on the stuff that they responded to.
And are you still in like possession of these unused tapes, or are these just like in the DreamWorks archive somewhere?
I bet they're in the ethers of DreamWorks somewhere. Who knows?
The end of Indiana Jones with all those boxes.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry did more recording sessions than any actor in animation history, I'm certain. By a factor of probably 5. Whatever the nearest guy is, I'm sure Jerry is 5 to 10 to 20 times more because he recorded with us every single day because he was right there. If we needed to try out, if we were in editing and we thought of a line, he'd record it. We'd cut it in. You can't do that with most actors. They come in, maybe 10 times on the movie. Jerry probably did over 300 recording sessions on it, so it's not even close.
Interesting. Well, that's usually, that's all the time we have, but I usually ask before we leave, what would you tell someone, an aspiring animator who wants to get in the field? Of course, you say that in your book, but, just in case, would you mind telling us the advice you'd have?
Yeah, my new advice is, how much do you want it? Because it's going to be hard to get in, and there's going to be a lot of people saying no.
All right.
And unless you have that fire in you, you will not be able to put up with the no's and the resistance. But it's the most wonderful possible way to make a living imaginable. I've been doing it 37 years now. I love movies every bit as much as I did when I was a 17-year-old kid or 18 years old when I started college. And the best part of animation by far is the people you get to work with. They are wonderful. I mean, as I said, I'm going to go to the CTN Expo tonight and tomorrow, and the best part's going to be getting to meet with all the people who love animation.
Yeah.
They're wonderful people, and that's the best part of animation. But it's hard. So you got to really, really want it.
I've noticed that the people who do animation are pretty cool, but I wouldn't say I'm too biased on it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Hickner is the director of DreamWorks Animation's The Prince of Egypt and the Bee Movie. You can watch The Prince of Egypt on Netflix. I don't know where you can find the Bee Movie. You can buy it on Amazon. And of course, his book, Animating Your Career, is available on Amazon, I think. Yeah. There's going to be a link.
Animation Rolls.
Yeah, there'll be a link in the description if you want to buy it. Of course, he's a large supporter of all the B-movie memes, and of course, if you would like to donate to the cause, you know, the reason this show exists, please check the description below. Every dollar counts. Do you have anything to say before we sign off?
No, thank you so much for inviting me here, and enjoy the animation world.
Oh, thank you. And you guys too, you enjoy the animation world. The next episode of Cartoons vs. Cancer is going to be on December 6th, I'm pretty sure it is, with Bruce Smith, the creator of The Proud Family and director of Bebe's Kids. Or unless I schedule another one sooner than that, but you never know. We will see you guys later. Goodbye. Bye.